Hi, and welcome to the ResRequest email campaign manager tutorial. Now, just at the outset to point out that ResRequest is not a campaign manager, but what it does do is because you're already creating your guests and storing their email addresses in ResRequest, it acts as a vehicle for you to be able to export a list of your guests with their emails, and then from your campaign manager tool, which is a separate application such as MailChimp, you'll be able to prepare your campaigns and import your guest lists or your contact lists that you export from ResRequest into those campaign manager tools so that you can email from there. So this demonstration is really just to show you how you extract that information from ResRequest and go into your campaign manager and set up that email system from there. Okay, so the assumption is that you are already proactively capturing and setting up your guests, and you've got your team at the lodge or at the reservations office that are going in and cleaning up that guest information and making sure that the email addresses are relevant. And now you're in the marketing team and you're ready to email from your campaign manager. And you want to export those guest lists from ResRequest. So here you go. Very simple to do. From the property menu, I'm going to go and run a report called the guest history report, because I'm basically saying I would like to see a list of guests that have traveled with me in the last few days. So the first thing I want to do is make sure I only get the lists of guests where I've got an email address. So I'm going to say, here's a quick trick. You simply say I want to see all guests with an email address. And a quick way to do that is to insert your little asterisk or wildcards, anything where there's the @ sign which indicates an email address. Now I'm going to collapse that section. The next section is to say that I only want to see guests that have traveled with me, and that's the guest history section. So I'm going to go to the guest history and say I only want to see guests linked to reservations, and I'm going to filter it to say I only want to see guests linked to reservations at Baobab Lodge. And I want to say only guests where they've traveled between, let's say, May, the end of May, and more or less the 3rd of June. So again, I'm basically saying all guests with email address that have traveled at Baobab Lodge between the 28th of May and the 3rd of June. Now the next thing is to actually say what needs to be generated. With this guest history report, you'll always have at least the guest's first name and last name generated. But in order to get a copy of the email address with it, you need to say as well that you would like to include the email address in the output in ResRequest. Now the next thing and last step here is to generate the report. Click on generate the report, and there you go. Those are all the emails that I have, or guests that I have with email addresses that have traveled with within that date range at Baobab Lodge. Okay, the next step is to export these results, because I now need to export it from ResRequest so that I can import it into my mail campaign manager. So from here, I'm going to go to my export. My options are to export as MS Excel or OpenOffice. I'm going to use MS Excel, and I'm going to save the file. Okay, the next step is to open the file into a format that I know that my Mail Campaign Manager tool copes well with. Now I know I'm going to use, for the purposes of this demo, MailChimp, and I know MailChimp handles CSV files well. Now CSV files are just a generic file format to handle data between applications. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to find that particular file. And there we go. Here's the file that I created. Okay, so I've got my list, and I can do a little bit of cleanup here in Excel if I want to as well. But the key thing here is to export it or save it as a CSV file. To do that, I'm going to go File, Save As, and make sure that you've got selected in your file type the file format CSV. And I've given it a name, Member, and I'm going to save that file. Okay, so I've saved my CSV file, and my next step now is to go into my actual campaign manager tool and actually work from there. Okay, so my campaign manager tool, like I mentioned earlier, is MailChimp for the purposes of this tutorial. And I've already set up my campaign. I've called it my newsletter campaign. Let's go and have a quick squiz at that. Here's my newsletter campaign. If I just go back into the template, sorry, the design. And here you go. Here's my email that I'm going to be sending out to you. So everything is ready, and I'm almost at the final stages that I want to actually email this out. But before I do that, I need to set up a list. So I'm going to go into my list, and this is where I basically set up all the people that I want to actually email. And I've created a list in MailChimp now, but as you can see, there's no subscribers to the list. So I want to actually import a list of subscribers here. So I'm going to click on members. And here's my options to import. I'm going to import subscribers. And here are my options. I can import from a CSV or text file or various other options. I'm going to go with a CSV file because that's the file format I created. Now I go and find the file. And I upload my list. Now CSV, the beauty about that is it actually recognizes the different types of data. So it tells me my last names, my first names, and my email addresses. So I can actually merge specific information so my mailer actually looks personalized. For the purposes of this exercise, I'm going to skip that step, and I'm actually only going to include their email addresses. So I'm going to save that here. Once I've said I only want the email addresses, I complete the import. And now it says that I've got a list of 14 people in my members list, and there they are. So now if I want to go into my campaign and I want to get ready to actually email it out, into my campaign, and I go into the confirmation stage to actually email it out, I have the ability to select from my list. So when I go into my list, I'm going to select my members, and it says to me that this is going to email 14 members, which is the list that you saw earlier on. And from this point, I could then proceed through the normal campaign manager steps to make sure that my campaign goes out to the people that I want to target to. So very quickly, in a nutshell, that was just showing you how you can basically export your list of contacts, in this case it was guests, from your ResRequest system, and very quickly and easily import it into your campaign manager tool such as MailChimp. Please feel free to contact our support officers if you need any more information or guidance on this great marketing function. Take care.